Here at the Customer Catalyst Conference, I'm delighted to introduce Horst Schulze, founder of the world-famous Ritz-Carlton Group, speaking with our colleague Chris Green. Chris is a partner at Arch & Tower, an Atlanta-based consulting firm focused on employee experience, customer experience, and operational excellence. Horst Schulze, of course, is legendary in the customer service world. You may have seen his book, Excellence. We're very honoured to share his thoughts at the Customer Catalyst. Over to you, Chris.
We're thrilled to be here today with the Customer Catalyst team, working to build sea change in organizations. And today we're here with Horst Schulze, who's the founder of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. And then after he built that empire, he then decided to do Capella Hotel Group, which this year was rated as having the #1 hotel in the world in Bali by Travel and Leisure magazine. So congratulations on that. Horst won the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award not once, but twice. It was the first hotel chain to ever accomplish that feat, and you did it twice. And even to this day, speaks every day, multiple hours a day to leaders all around the world, encouraging them to live with excellence and to build customer experience-focused organizations. So Horst, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to hearing from you and have a lot of great questions to ask.
Good.
So with that set up, can you give us a little bit of background on how you got to where you are today and how you got into the hotel industry?
All right. Well, starting in the beginning, if you will, I grew up in a small village in Germany right after the war. And with 11, I told my parents I would like to work in the hotel. But of course, they didn't take it serious. Yes, okay. But I kept on insisting on it. Sure enough, they found a great hotel, the greatest in the region, for me to start working in. And at the time, I was a busboy and washing dishes and so on. Unfortunately, that was 100 kilometers away from our home. So I left home when I was 14. Arrived in that hotel, fabulous hotel. In fact, my parents said, we could never go there. It's only for fine ladies and gentlemen. Well, I was welcomed by one gentleman in the hotel, the maitre d' of the hotel. And he impacted my life right there. The first day he said, tomorrow you show up here at 7 o'clock in the morning to work. No, not to work. Tomorrow you show up at 7 o'clock. But don't come here to work. Come here to create excellence in what you are doing. Now that went over my head at the time, excellence, washing dishes and so on. But after a while, I learned what he meant. I then moved on from there. I worked in the finest hotels in Europe. Hotels like the Beau Rivage Palace in Lausanne, the Bellevue Palace in Bern, the Plaza Athénée in Paris, the Barclay and the Savoy in London. From there, I moved to the United States and worked for Hilton, worked for Hyatt, was very successful with Hyatt, and grew rapidly to become regional vice president over 10 hotels, and following being corporate vice president over all hotels in the United States food and beverage operation. And then I got an offer to start a new hotel company. There were some developers and financial people in Atlanta, Georgia. I lived in Chicago at the time, that approached me and they said, we want to create our own brand. I said, well, if I can operationally do what I want, bring it to the top level of the industry, I would be interested. Sure enough, we come to agreement. I moved to Atlanta late 1982. January 1984, we opened our first hotel, Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta, Georgia. I left a few years later, 19 years later. We had hotels around the world in 5 continents. And by the way, they all were leaders in their market segment.
That's awesome, Horst. So your philosophies were built in the hotel industry. But as we've seen today, all industries around the world take from those philosophies that you built inside of the Ritz-Carlton. So how or why is that possible, that something in the hotel industry just works everywhere?
Well, interesting enough, I'm a member of 6 board of directors. None of them is a hotel. And I'm sure can help those companies dramatically in what is really important. Besides that, I'm consulting with a number of companies, none of them hotels. I don't accept hotels. And I have impacted them dramatically. I say that humbly, but because it's a fact. The fact is, the real driver of customer loyalty, which everybody wants, if you're a great company, you want customer loyalty. The real driver is not the product, but the caring that you give to the customer. In fact, if I may add on to that, we know that today, I don't know, a careful surveys being made identify that if you're excellent in hospitality, in any business, not hotel, that consequently the guest, or the customer or the patient or whatever you call them, would be willing, 70% would be willing to pay more for the same product if proper service is being given. And that, of course, is the expertise that I bring to the table. So that's 70% of the overall market. However, and here is something extremely important for tomorrow. 80% of the millennials say the same thing. So with other words, your customer of tomorrow, 80% of them say, if you treat me well, if you give me service and hospitality and caring, then I will be loyal to your product. I will be willing to pay more for the same product if you care for me. The reason for that is if you care for the customer will trust you and consequently willing to pay more and recommend you.
So in the customer catalyst, an important component of the sea change is culture. So how can companies and business leaders create a customer-centric culture?
Well, let's understand. Culture is the general belief of the organization. And that general belief is, of course, accomplished by having the right narrative put into the organization. But it starts by hiring the right people. Excuse me. In fact, not hiring. Select them people that would be service-oriented. Teach them from the first day on that you're in business to care for people. Be sure that narrative is continued, ongoing. What we did in Ritz-Carlton and in Capella, we had certain non-negotiable service expectation, which we repeated daily before every shift in every hotel. We supported that with customer comments and customer results, so that the narrative, the expectation, the conversation in each hotel was the same. And it was, we care for customers. We are proud to take care for customers. We know that the outcome of caring for customers is value for us. We know that we are defining ourselves as people of excellence by delivering great customer service, etc. That was the narrative. Everybody understood it, so we all believed in it.
So when you were the founder of the Ritz-Carlton, you sat in a unique role because you chose to sit in the chief operating officer role or the chief operations officer role. As we move into modern times, there's a new role being created. In fact, the Customer Catalyst talks a lot about this, that the chief customer officer or the chief customer experience officer. So that didn't exist when you were working at the Ritz-Carlton, but it exists now. So how do you feel about that? Do you think that's an important role? And how would you do that in our modern times to get your company to focus on customer experience?
I think it's a very important role. I played that role as the COO of the company and as president of the company, but the point is truly that everybody is in charge of service in the organization. It certainly doesn't hurt to have somebody to make sure it actually happens. Concentrating on it and identifying. Also, that person should be the one that identifies shift in the thinking of the customer and be sure that it's implemented right away. Because what is service? Doing what the customer wants. Not what we want. It's not about us, it's about the customer. And the customer's thinking shifts, and I would hope that the person in charge of service excellence in an organization knows that shift and is sure that everybody else knows it in the organization. So again, I'm zealous about it, that everyone is in charge of service, caring. But it would certainly help if there's somebody to make sure it actually happens.
Right. So interesting. So in our consulting businesses, and I know who you consult with, what we find more and more, just because of the efficiency of the markets, are that products and services are becoming more and more commodities. People are competing on price more than ever. And so one of your philosophies is competing on experience. And so I'm curious, how do you think customer experience is going to continue to be linked to business growth in the future?
Well, I touched on that. Remember the millennials, that's the future. We have to understand today, I don't know how many percent, 30, 40% of your customers are millennials. In 3-4 years, it's 80%. And what are they saying? They're saying, care for me individually. That's what they're saying. That's the difference between the millennial and us. We thought the same thing, but we didn't say it. They're very explicit. What's in it for me? Take care of me individually. And that is, of course, service. And if I know that they will be loyal to me, if they experience that caring, then I better start creating processes, services, and systems that assures it actually happens. Yeah. Everything else will be a commodity. But even that commodity, they purchase from somebody who cares for them.
So for those watching, they've read the Customer Catalyst, they've bought into the idea that the sea change needs to happen in their organization. The toughest part is developing a culture before having this realization and then having to figure out, how do I do this in my organization that's been running and has all the inertia of the past? How do I do that now in my organization? What's your advice to someone who wants to apply this and get it going in their organization today?
Well, more so, remember, we had to apply this simultaneously, if you will, the same way in 5 continents. What does that take? So service, unfortunately, I see nearly every company, they all talk about service and hospitality and caring. But when you ask, what's your process to accomplish this? There's nothing. Just like the production of your widgets has a process, the production of caring also is a process. And that it takes systems, measurements, and processes that assures it will happen consistently wherever you are. And that is the point. You cannot hope. If it is the most important thing that creates customer loyalty for you. Oh, by the way, that loyal customer, again back to the millennium, also is not only willing to be loyal, but they're willing to pay more, and they want to recommend you. So I better have processes and systems and controls and measurements so that I accomplish it.
So Horst, if executives are sitting here today and leaders are listening to what you're saying, and they're inspired by this, and they want to go back and have a conversation with their leadership team, what are the types of questions they should be asking? What are the types of things they should be pushing for in that team?
Well, frankly, it is not, again, what I see happening all the time. They have one conversation about it and it's gone. It seems that the strategy for customer service excellence is hope. Hope is not a strategy. We know that. So what you should do is learn and understand the systems that accomplish it. Let's get going on that first, and then implement, roll those systems out, understand, take a good look at your organization or have somebody do it. Look at the organization. It would be good to step back and let somebody have an independent look at that and say, here is the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Sadly, many companies don't even know where they want to be. They even need help for that. That's a fact. And I don't mean to be critical of anybody's listening here, but I see it all the time. They don't even know where they want to be. They don't quite understand where they are. But you must, in order to understand the gap, and then help somebody fill the gap.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, and I know you're a big proponent of vision and having a vision. Tell us a little bit about vision, how important it is, and maybe even a little bit of insight on how you use vision even today to drive your life.
Yeah. Well, vision is the destination that you have in mind where you want to take your company or yourself, for that matter. Again, I read vision statements, except one. I have seen many, hundreds, but they're not vision statements. They're mission statements. Vision statement is a statement of desire where the company should be, where you wish the company to be, not where you can be, where you wish the company or yourself to be in 10 years. The point is, once you establish that, as a moral leader, you have to make absolutely sure that it serves all concerned. The investors, the customer, the employee, and society as a whole. Once you have determined, yes, it would serve all, in that moment, you're obligated to go for it. In fact, in that moment, you know you cannot even compromise anymore. You must go for it. And you will then find the steps that will take you there. So it starts there. Vision is, if without vision, is like going in your car, blindfold yourself and drive somewhere. Wherever you are right now, wherever you are it doesn't matter where, individually, you got to that place because it was in your mind to get there. That's why you got there. It's no different with taking a company or yourself to a certain place. Where do you want to be? Not where can I be? Where do you want to be? It should be beautiful. It should be exciting. It should be, you should be sure that would be exciting for every employee. It would be great for your investors, etc. Then you have a vision. Then you will determine how to get there. It's beautiful and exciting.
Well, Horst, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, for inspiring us today, and giving us some practical application for how to make the sea change happen in our organizations. And thank you to Chris and Daniel for having the two of us today, and we hope the conference goes well for you.
And I was delighted to be with you.
Thank you, Chris and Horst, for that insight about what it truly means to become customer-focused at every step. One of the challenges here is translating intention into action and demonstrating that culture delivers results. Horst shows that with commitment to customers, an 11-year-old boy can build a global empire. Again, thank you to Chris Green of Arch & Tower and to Horst Schulze, the founder of the Ritz-Carlton Group. Now, let's continue the Customer Catalyst Conference.